In the remote countryside stood the Penhallow estate, a sprawling home with laughterless halls and windows that always seemed to watch. For years, neighbors whispered about the 6 Penhallow children, none of whom ever attended school, played in the village, or even stepped foot in the local church. What kept them hidden from the world? This is the macabre history of the Penhallows. The Penhallow family was once one of the wealthiest landowners in the region, their vast estate stretching across wind-swept hills and dense, shadowed woods. The manor itself stood far from the nearest village, its high stone walls and iron gates making it clear that whatever happened inside was not meant for outside eyes. At first, the Penhallows were regarded simply as private people, eccentric, perhaps, but harmless. But as years passed, the family's secrecy began to take on a darker edge. The villagers noticed that while the estate housed 6 children, none were ever seen beyond its grounds. They did not attend school, they were never brought to church, and they never played in the meadows or lanes as other children did. The windows of the Penhallow manor became a source of fascination and unease. People swore they saw pale shapes watching from behind the glass, only to vanish when looked at directly. Even now, more than a century later, the mystery of the Penhallow children remains unsolved. Historians can trace the family's wealth and land deeds, but when it comes to the 6 children themselves, the records fall silent, just like the villagers' memories, which still carry an unspoken fear of what might have been hidden behind those locked gates. At first, the villagers assumed the Penhallow children were simply being educated at home, as wealthy families often did. But as the years passed, the absence became too strange to ignore. Birth records confirmed 6 children were born into the family over 2 decades, yet not a single one was ever seen attending local festivals, church services, or even walking through the village with their parents. Whispers began to spread. Some said the children were gravely ill and too fragile to leave the manor. Others believed they were born with deformities the proud Penhallows wanted to hide. A few went further, suggesting something far more disturbing, that the children were not meant to be seen because they were not like other children at all. Occasionally, villagers reported glimpses that only deepened the mystery. At night, a candle might flicker behind a high window, and a small figure could be seen standing perfectly still, watching the dark fields below. Once, a farmer claimed he saw several tiny shapes moving in the gardens, darting away the moment he called out. No voices ever answered, no laughter ever echoed, only silence, as though the children were ghosts in their own home. As the years dragged on without any sight of the Penhallow children, speculation in the surrounding villages grew darker. At first, the most common belief was that the children suffered from some rare illness or severe deformity, something the proud and reclusive Penhallows couldn't bear to reveal to the public. Families whispered that the manor was less a home and more a private hospital, where the children were kept out of sight until their conditions worsened or they quietly passed away. Others insisted the isolation wasn't about illness at all but about control. Rumors spread that the Penhallows followed their own rigid, almost cult-like traditions, with strict rules about purity, silence, and obedience. Visitors who had been inside the estate, servants, tradesmen, and clergy, described an atmosphere so oppressive it felt like stepping into another world. The children, they claimed, were forbidden to make noise, forbidden to be seen, and perhaps forbidden to leave. The darkest whispers questioned whether the children were even alive. Some villagers said the births had been recorded merely to maintain appearances, and that whatever lived inside the Penhallow manor's locked rooms were not children at all, but something else entirely. Whether these were just fearful imaginations or hints of something real remains unknown, but the rumors alone were enough to keep most people far away from the estate. Over time, the silence around the Penhallow estate became impossible for the surrounding community to ignore. Local authorities, pressed by persistent rumors, attempted to verify the well-being of the 6 children. Church officials, too, sought answers, citing both moral duty and the unusual absence of any Penhallow child from baptismal records, schooling rolls, or parish gatherings. The family, when approached, remained unfailingly polite yet unhelpful. Lord Penhallow would offer rehearsed reassurances. The children were too delicate for visitors, or receiving special care under the guidance of private tutors and physicians. No one outside the household ever saw these tutors. No one saw the supposed doctors, either. Each time an investigation seemed close to breaching the manor's walls, it was abruptly halted. Sometimes officials were invited inside, only to be led through immaculate, empty halls where no trace of children could be found. No toys, no clothing, no evidence of a schoolroom or nursery. Other times, inquiries ended before they began, often after generous donations to local councils or the church. The result was always the same. Questions were asked, vague answers were given, and the gates of the Penhallow estate remained closed. Whatever truth lay inside was kept hidden, protected by wealth, influence, and a wall of fear no one dared to break. One autumn night, decades after the first rumors began, the Penhallow estate came alive in a way no one in the village had ever seen. From a distance, neighbors watched as dozens of lanterns flickered through the manor's windows and across its dark gardens. Silhouettes moved quickly behind the glass, small figures and taller ones, as though children and adults were rushing from room to room. Some claimed they heard sounds carried on the wind, faint crying at first, then something that didn't quite resemble words. Others insisted it was chanting, low, rhythmic, and unnerving, like a ritual being performed deep within the walls. Dogs in nearby farms howled for hours, refusing to go near the property's edge. By dawn, the lights went out, and an unnatural stillness settled over the estate. No servants emerged, no deliveries were made, and no smoke rose from the chimneys. Those who dared to approach later that day reported that the grounds felt abandoned, not just quiet, but hollow, as if something vital had drained away overnight. Not long after the night of the lanterns, the Penhallow family vanished. Servants, carriages, and all visible signs of life within the manor ceased overnight. Neighbors noticed locked gates, shuttered windows, and an eerie absence of smoke from the chimneys that had once burned constantly through the cold seasons. Attempts to locate the family revealed nothing. There were no records of their departure, no tickets purchased for travel, no sales of land or possessions. Even more disturbing, there were no burial records, no official notices, nothing that accounted for the 6 children who had once been at the center of so much whispered speculation. It was as if they had never existed at all. The empty manor quickly gained a sinister reputation. Travelers avoided the road that passed its gates. Villagers warned their children never to play near the overgrown fields. Those who lived closest claimed they sometimes saw figures, too small to be adults, moving behind the dusty windows at night. Others swore they heard faint knocking from inside, as though someone, or something, was still trying to get out. Today, the Penhallow Manor stands as a decaying monument to its own secrets. The roof has partially collapsed, ivy strangles its stone walls, and the once manicured gardens have become a wild, tangled forest. Yet even in ruin, the place feels watched. Windows, though cracked and dust-coated, seem to hold faint impressions of faces that shouldn't be there, pale shapes staring outward, disappearing when approached. Urban explorers who have ventured inside tell unsettling stories. Some claim to have seen small handprints on walls far too high for a child to reach. Others describe hearing the sound of footsteps trailing them from room to room, always just a beat behind their own. Photographs taken near the estate often reveal what people describe as extras, blurred childlike figures standing in the overgrown garden or hovering near the manor's broken gates. Locals rarely go near the property after dark. They say the air feels heavier there, and that if you linger too long, you'll hear faint noises, soft tapping, or the muffled hum of voices. No one stays long enough to find out what they're saying. Fear of the Penhallows hasn't faded. It has become part of the land itself. The Penhallow story reminds us how silence and secrecy can give rise to chilling legends that haunt generations. Behind the manor's locked gates, something was hidden, whether it was a tragic reality, an act of cruel isolation, or a darkness no one dares to name, remains a mystery. What do you believe? Was it a family's desperate attempt to protect secrets, or something far more sinister? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If you crave more eerie tales wrapped in mystery, be sure to subscribe and join us for the next story.